Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's absolutely critical topic, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our content. Today, we're exploring a terrifying but fascinating scenario. What would happen if the internet went down globally for just 24 hours? In our hyper-connected world, the internet has become as essential as electricity or running water. We use it for everything: banking, shopping, communication, navigation, entertainment, work, and countless other functions. Most people don't realize how completely dependent modern civilization has become on constant internet connectivity until it's gone. Drop a comment below telling me how long you could survive without internet and what would be the hardest thing to lose access to. Now let's explore what would happen during those catastrophic 24 hours if the entire global internet suddenly went dark. The moment the internet goes down, the global economy would begin experiencing cascading failures across virtually every sector. The immediate economic impact would be measured in hundreds of billions of dollars, with some estimates suggesting losses exceeding $50 to $75 billion for just a single day of global outage. Financial markets would freeze completely. Stock exchanges, forex markets, commodities trading, and cryptocurrency exchanges all depend entirely on internet connectivity. The New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, London Stock Exchange, and every other major exchange would halt trading immediately. Trillions of dollars in transactions that occurred daily would simply stop. High-frequency trading algorithms executing millions of trades per second would go silent. The global financial system would effectively pause. Banking would become nearly impossible for most people. While banks have some offline capabilities, the vast majority of modern banking happens online. ATMs would stop working after exhausting cache data. Credit and debit card payments would fail for most merchants since they require real-time authorization from banks. Mobile banking apps would be useless. Electronic fund transfers, bill payments, and payroll processing would all halt. People would be unable to access their money except for whatever cash they have on hand. E-commerce would completely shut down. Amazon, Alibaba, eBay, and thousands of other online retailers would cease operations. In developed countries, e-commerce represents 15 to 20% of total retail sales. This massive sector of the economy would simply stop functioning. The millions of small businesses that operate exclusively online would have zero revenue for the entire day. The payment systems that underpin modern commerce would fail. Point-of-sale systems in retail stores that connect to the internet for authorization would stop working. While some older systems might revert to offline modes that store transactions for later processing, many modern systems are cloud-based and would become completely non-functional. This would force many businesses to accept only cash, which most people don't carry in sufficient quantities anymore. Supply chain management systems would blind businesses to their inventory and shipments. Modern logistics depends on real-time tracking and coordination across global networks. Companies wouldn't know where their products are, what inventory they have, or what needs to be ordered. Just-in-time inventory systems that minimize warehousing costs by relying on precise coordination would break down. Manufacturing could continue for a while using existing inventory, but coordination would be chaotic. Cloud computing services would become inaccessible. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and other platforms host huge portions of the world's business applications and data. Companies that migrated to the cloud would lose access to critical business systems. Even internal networks often depend on cloud services for authentication, file storage, and applications, making them partially or completely unusable. The gig economy would disappear. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and TaskRabbit, and countless other platforms that connect workers with customers through apps would become non-functional. The millions of people who earn income through these platforms would have zero earnings for the day. While traditional taxis could continue operating, they represent a tiny fraction of current ride-hailing capacity. Understanding the immediate economic impact reveals how completely modern commerce depends on internet connectivity. The economy wouldn't just slow down, major portions would completely stop functioning. The longer the outage lasted, the worse the cascading effects would become, as inventory depletes, coordination breaks down, and confidence evaporates.
When the internet goes down, modern communication collapses in ways that would shock most people. We've become so dependent on internet-based communication that many wouldn't know how to reach family, friends, or colleagues without it. Email would completely stop working. Billions of emails sent daily for business and personal communication would simply not be delivered. Critical business communications, time-sensitive notifications, and personal messages would all vanish into the void. For many businesses, email is the primary communication channel, both internally and with customers. Its loss would cripple coordination and customer service. Messaging apps would fail. WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, Signal, Slack, Microsoft Teams, and countless other platforms used by billions of people would become useless. Many people, especially younger generations, use these apps as their primary communication method and don't even know the phone numbers of people they regularly communicate with. Social media would go dark. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, and all other platforms would be inaccessible. For the billions who use social media daily, this would create a profound sense of isolation. News dissemination would be severely hampered, since social media has become a primary news source for many people. Breaking news wouldn't spread the way it does now. Voice over IP, or VoIP services would stop working. Services like Skype, Zoom, Google Meet, and even many business phone systems that run over internet connections would fail. Video conferencing, which became essential during COVID-19 and remains crucial for remote work, would be impossible. International calls using internet-based services would fail, leaving only expensive traditional international calling. Traditional phone systems would be overwhelmed. While cellular networks and landlines don't technically require the internet to function, they're so interconnected with internet infrastructure that degradation would occur. More importantly, the sudden surge of people trying to use phones because internet services failed would overwhelm networks, creating congestion and failed calls. Emergency services communication would be partially impaired. While 911 and equivalent services have redundant systems, many modern emergency response systems rely on internet connectivity for coordination, dispatch, and information sharing. Some smart city emergency systems that optimize response times using real-time data would lose functionality. News organizations would struggle to gather and disseminate information. Journalists rely on internet for research, communication with sources, and filing stories. While television and radio could still broadcast, their news-gathering capabilities would be severely limited. Many modern news organizations that are primarily digital would be unable to publish. Understanding the communication breakdown reveals our vulnerability. Humans have always found ways to communicate, but we've become dependent on internet-based systems to the point where their loss would isolate millions and create confusion and anxiety on a massive scale. Beyond financial markets and communication, the day-to-day operations of businesses across all sectors would face severe disruption or complete shutdown. The productivity loss would be staggering, as modern work depends fundamentally on internet connectivity. Remote work would become impossible. The COVID-19 pandemic proved that many jobs can be done remotely, but remote work requires internet connectivity. Video conferences, access to company systems, file sharing, email, all depend on the internet. The millions of people who now work from home would be unable to perform their jobs. Companies would face the choice of telling people to come to physical offices or simply accepting a day of lost productivity. Office work would be severely impaired even for those physically present. Modern offices depend on cloud services, email, web-based applications, and internet connectivity for most functions. Even tasks that seem offline often require internet access. Accessing customer records, processing orders, updating databases, researching information, all typically require connectivity. Office workers would find themselves surprisingly helpless. Customer service would collapse. Call centers rely on internet-connected systems to access customer information, process requests, and resolve issues. Without these systems, representatives couldn't help customers even if phone lines worked. Many customer service operations have moved to chat and email, which would be completely non-functional. Businesses would be unable to support customers. Healthcare systems would face serious challenges. Electronic health records stored in the cloud would be inaccessible. Doctors couldn't access patient histories, test results, or medication lists. Prescription systems that electronically transmit orders to pharmacies would fail. Medical imaging systems that store and share images online would be impaired. Telemedicine, which has grown dramatically, would be impossible. While emergency care could continue using local systems and paper records, efficiency would plummet. Education would halt for online and hybrid learning. Schools and universities that offer online classes would be unable to conduct them. Learning management systems like Canvas, Blackboard, and Google Classroom would be inaccessible. Even traditional in-person education increasingly relies on internet connectivity for presentations, accessing materials, and submitting assignments. Transportation and logistics would struggle with coordination. Airlines use internet-based systems for reservations, check-in, flight planning, and coordination. While planes could still fly using radio communication and traditional navigation, the system would be severely degraded. Shipping companies track containers and coordinate complex global logistics using internet systems that would fail. Delivery services rely on GPS and routing algorithms that require connectivity. Entertainment and media industries would be devastated. Streaming services like Netflix, Spotify, YouTube, and gaming platforms would be completely unavailable. The millions of people who work in content creation and rely on these platforms would have no way to distribute their work or earn income. Digital advertising, which represents over half of all advertising spending, would cease completely. Understanding business operations breakdown reveals that productivity isn't just reduced without internet, it approaches zero for many sectors. The economy wouldn't just slow, it would largely stop functioning in its modern form.
While essential infrastructure like power grids and water systems are designed to operate without internet, modern systems have become increasingly dependent on connectivity for monitoring, control, and optimization. An internet outage would create hidden vulnerabilities in systems we assume are completely separate. Power grids would continue generating electricity, but management would be degraded. Modern grids use internet connectivity for real-time monitoring, load balancing, and coordinating renewable energy sources. Smart grids that optimize distribution and integrate distributed solar and wind power would lose sophistication, potentially leading to inefficiencies or localized failures. Grid operators would revert to older manual processes. Water treatment and distribution systems could experience issues. While water would continue flowing, many modern systems use internet-connected sensors and controls for monitoring water quality, managing pressure, and detecting leaks. The loss of these monitoring capabilities could allow problems to develop undetected. Operators would have reduced visibility into system status. Transportation infrastructure would face challenges. Traffic light systems in many cities are networked and optimized using real-time traffic data collected via the internet. These systems would revert to simpler timing patterns, potentially causing increased congestion. Intelligent transportation systems that reduce traffic and accidents would lose functionality. Air traffic control would continue operating using dedicated communication systems, but supplementary internet-based tools for weather monitoring, flight planning, and coordination would be unavailable. Flight delays and inefficiencies would increase. The global air traffic management system, already complex, would become more difficult to coordinate. Emergency services could struggle with coordination beyond basic dispatch. Many fire, police, and ambulance services use internet-connected systems for real-time information sharing, accessing databases, and coordinating responses. GPS routing for emergency vehicles often requires internet connectivity. Response times would likely increase, and coordination would be reduced. Food supply chains would be disrupted. While grocery stores could remain open and sell what inventory they have, replenishment systems would fail. Stores wouldn't be able to automatically reorder inventory or coordinate deliveries. The complex systems that ensure fresh food arrives at stores would break down. After 24 hours, this wouldn't be catastrophic, but it would create shortages of specific items. Gas stations might face payment issues. While fuel is stored locally, many stations rely on internet connectivity for credit card processing and inventory management. Stations that can only accept cash would create problems for motorists who don't carry sufficient cash. Coordination of fuel delivery trucks would be impaired. Understanding infrastructure impacts reveals that while essential services wouldn't completely fail, they would degrade in ways that could create cascading problems. The longer the outage, the more these hidden dependencies would create visible failures.
Beyond the practical disruptions, a 24-hour internet outage would create profound social and psychological effects as billions of people suddenly lost access to something that has become integral to modern life and identity. Massive anxiety and confusion would grip populations. Many people check their phones dozens or hundreds of times per day. The inability to access social media, news, entertainment, or communicate with others would create genuine distress. People would feel isolated and cut off from the world, even if physically surrounded by others. Information vacuum would create fear and rumors. Without the internet, people couldn't easily verify what was happening or why. Rumors would spread through word of mouth without fact-checking. Conspiracy theories about the cause, cyber attack, solar flare, government shutdown would proliferate. The inability to access authoritative information would heighten anxiety.
Productivity paradox might emerge. While businesses would lose productivity, some individuals might become surprisingly productive at tasks requiring deep focus. The constant interruptions from notifications, emails, and the temptation to browse would disappear. Some might accomplish more reading, thinking, or creative work than they normally do. Social interaction patterns would shift dramatically. Without digital communication, people might actually talk to those physically near them more than usual. Families might have conversations instead of everyone staring at phones. However, the inability to reach those not physically present would create frustration and concern. Entertainment options would revert to pre-internet era activities. People would watch broadcast TV, read physical books, play board games, or engage in outdoor activities. Some would struggle with boredom, especially younger generations who have never known life without internet. The realization of how dependent entertainment has become on streaming would be stark. FOMO, fear of missing out, would intensify. People would wonder what they're missing on social media, what news is breaking, what friends are doing. The inability to check would create anxiety for those psychologically dependent on constant connectivity and validation through likes and comments. Some people would experience unexpected relief. The pressure to constantly respond to messages, maintain online presence, and consume content would lift. Some might discover they enjoy the forced digital detox, realizing how stressed the constant connectivity makes them. Generation gaps would become apparent. Older people who remember pre-internet life might adapt more easily, drawing on skills and habits from earlier eras. Younger people who have never experienced life without internet might struggle more with coping strategies and alternatives. Understanding social and psychological impacts reveals that internet loss wouldn't just be a technical problem. It would be a profound disruption to how billions of people experience daily life, maintain relationships, and construct their sense of self and connection to the world.
When the internet came back online after 24 hours, recovery wouldn't be instant. The backlog of transactions, communications, and processes would create challenges. More importantly, the experience would fundamentally change how society thinks about internet dependency. Immediate surge would overwhelm systems. When connectivity restored, billions of devices would simultaneously try to reconnect, send queued messages, and sync data. This traffic surge could cause congestion and slowdowns. Email servers would be flooded with 24 hours of backed-up messages. Social media platforms would see unprecedented simultaneous logins. Financial markets would experience extreme volatility. Traders unable to access markets for 24 hours would rush to adjust positions based on developments during the outage. The backlog of orders and uncertainty about what happened during the outage would create chaotic trading sessions. Businesses would face massive backlogs. Every transaction attempted during the outage would need processing. Customer service queues would be enormous, with everyone who couldn't reach support during the outage. The productivity loss couldn't be recovered. Lost work is lost forever. Economic cost estimates would be debated. Some would claim the 24-hour cost was $50 to $75 billion globally. Others might estimate higher. These calculations would include direct lost revenue, productivity losses, and delayed transactions. The true cost would be difficult to measure because much lost activity can't be precisely valued. Psychological scarring would persist. The realization of complete internet dependency would haunt individuals and institutions. Many would question whether such vulnerability is acceptable. Discussions about building resilience and reducing dependence would intensify. Policy responses would be demanded. Governments would investigate what happened and how to prevent recurrence. Calls for regulation, infrastructure investment, and backup systems would emerge. Debate would rage about whether internet access should be considered a critical infrastructure or even a human right. Business continuity plans would be revised. Companies would realize their disaster recovery plans inadequately addressed internet outages. Investment in offline capabilities, redundant systems, and alternative communication methods would increase. Long-term implications could reshape society. Just as previous technological disruptions changed civilization, a major internet outage might accelerate trends toward decentralization, local resilience, and reduced technology dependence. Or it might spur investment in more robust internet infrastructure to prevent future failures. We've explored what would happen if the internet went down for 24 hours, and the picture is sobering. The immediate economic collapse would cost tens of billions of dollars as financial markets froze, banking failed, and e-commerce stopped. Communication systems would break down, isolating billions. Business productivity would approach zero across many sectors. Essential infrastructure would degrade. Social and psychological impacts would create widespread anxiety and confusion.
The scenario reveals our profound and perhaps dangerous dependence on internet connectivity. Modern civilization has been built on the assumption of constant connectivity, creating vulnerabilities that few fully appreciate. A 24-hour outage would be survivable but devastating. A longer outage could threaten the foundations of modern society. This isn't purely hypothetical. While a global internet failure is unlikely, regional outages occur, and the vulnerability to cyber attacks, solar events, or infrastructure failures is real. Understanding these risks helps us prepare both personally and societally for potential disruptions. The lesson isn't necessarily to abandon internet dependency. That's neither possible nor desirable for most people. But awareness of the dependency allows for better contingency planning, maintaining some offline capabilities, and advocating for robust and resilient internet infrastructure. Now, I want to hear from you. How long could you survive without internet? What would you miss most? Do you think we're too dependent on connectivity? What should we do to prepare for potential outages? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this exploration eye-opening, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone who needs to understand our internet dependency. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you never miss our deep dives into technology and society. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.